Alright, so next we're finding more midpoints, but this time no graphs, just coordinates. And actually I think this is almost easier than working with the graph. Alright, so if I want to find halfway over and halfway up, I have to find a number that's halfway between -9 and -7, and a number that's halfway between -8 and +2. So the number this will be the x-coordinate once I find the halfway point over, and from -8 to 2, I'll find the y-coordinate by finding the halfway point there. Well, it turns out there's a really easy way to find the halfway number between two numbers. It's the average of those two numbers. So I just add them together and divide by 2. So we've got my x-coordinates and my y-coordinates. X-coordinates and y-coordinates. And then, to find the halfway number between the two x-coordinates, we just go -9 plus -7, and then we divide by 2. And see, that gives us -9 plus -7 is -16 divided by 2, -8. And that makes sense because it's -9, -8, -7. Alright, and that is the x, and we're going to call it x sub m for the x-coordinate of the midpoint. So I want to keep track of what that calculation was because I need to come back to it later. Then for the y-coordinates, I have -8 plus 2 divided by 2. And see, that gives us -8 plus 2 is -6 over 2. And that's -3 equals the y sub m. So our location is -8, -3. And notice, -3 kind of makes sense too. Count -8, -5, -4, -8, -7, -6, -5, -4, -3. So -3 is 5 spaces away. And then on to 2. So from -3 we got 4, 5, 6. Wait, -3, sorry. -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. So it's 5 more spaces to get up to 2. Alright, so let's take a look here. Here, our x-coordinate for the midpoint is -9 plus 10 over 2, which is, let's see, -9 plus 10 is a +1 over 2, so 1/2. Our y-coordinate is going to be 4 plus 3 over 2. That's 7 over 2. So our coordinates in the end are 1/2, comma, 7/2. And if you prefer decimals, you can just punch this in the calculator. That's 0.5, and that's 3.5. Okay. Next up, our x-coordinate is going to be 7 plus 8 over 2, which is 15 over 2, which is 7.5, 7.5. Y-coordinate would be -2 plus 8 over 2. -2 plus 8 is 6 over 2. That's 3. So I get 15 halves and 3. Let's see. Our x-coordinate for the midpoint is -4 plus 9 over 2, which is 5 over 2, which is 2.5. And our y-coordinate would be 8 plus -8 over 2, which is, well, 0 over 2, and that's just 0. So we have 5 halves, comma 0. Here we have our x-coordinate for the midpoint is 5 plus -4 over 2, which is 1 over 2, and our y-coordinate is 0 plus -6 over 2, which is -6 over 2, which is -3. So we have 1/2, comma, -3. Here, we've got our x-coordinate for the midpoint will be 4 plus -7 over 2. Let's see, that's going to be -3 over 2, -1.5. And our y-coordinate will be 2 plus 4 over 2, which is 6 over 2, which is 3. So we have negative 3/2, comma, 3. Let's take a look at some more. All right, here we go. We have, open up the window over here. Okay. The x-coordinate for our midpoint will be -6 plus 9 over 2, which is 3 over 2, that's 1.5. And the y-coordinate for our midpoint will be -2 plus 4 over 2, which is 2 over 2, which is 1. So we have 3/2, comma 1. Let's change up colors here. Here, the x-coordinate for our midpoint is 6 plus 6 over 2, 12 over 2, which is 6. And our y-coordinate will be -1 plus 4 over 2, which is 3 over 2. So 6, comma, 3 over 2. Our x-coordinate for the midpoint here will be -8 plus -6 over 2, that's -14 over 2, which is -7. Our y-coordinate will be 10 plus 7 over 2, which is 17 over 2, which is like 8.5. So we have -7, 17 over 2. All right. Here, our x-coordinate for the midpoint will be 2 plus 6 over 2, 8 over 2, which is 4. And our y-coordinate will be -6 plus 10 over 2, which is 4 over 2, which is 2. So 4, comma 2. Alright, so our x-coordinate here for the midpoint will be -7 plus 2 over 2, which is -5 over 2, which is -2.5. Our y-coordinate will be 2 plus -8 over 2, which is -6 over 2, which is -3. So we have -5/2, comma -3. Over here, our x-coordinate will be 4 plus -8 over 2, which is -4 over 2, which is -2. Our y-coordinate is going to be -7 plus 4 over 2, which is -3 over 2, which makes it -2, comma, -3 over 2. So again, just to recap, the way to find the x-coordinate for the midpoint is it's the number that's exactly halfway between the two x-coordinates of the two endpoints. And to find that, it's just the average of the two numbers, so you add them together and divide by 2. To find the y-coordinate of the midpoint, you have to find the point that is exactly, the number that's exactly halfway between the two y-coordinates of the endpoints. And to get that, we do the same thing. We just find the average, we add them together and divide by 2. A couple things to watch out for. Be careful with your negatives. Don't lose negatives along the way. And take lots of steps so you don't make any mistakes. All right? Just take your time. All right. Good luck with that.